A mortal sin sent me there. I wasn't a rapist, a murderer, a torturer. No. I was just a depressed, tired, disillusioned girl. That's all. Life had been hitting me hard for a long, long time. I won't tell you a sob story. Sometimes life sucks, and other times it sucks harder. I used to live in those other times every single day of my life. You really want the details? Fine, whatever. I was born into a poor household, and that alone should just tell you half of everything. I met a cavalcade of jerks, one after another, all the way up until the day I made a decision. Worst of all, it started in my home. My dad was blind, morally blind, a useless asshole incapable of moving his ass from his chair. My mother was abusive. My brothers, well, the younger one was fine. The other was Aaron Couplard. Yes, that Aaron Couplard. Convicted serial killer Aaron Couplard. Sadist torturer Aaron Couplard. Rightfully executed Aaron Couplard. I don't know if you understand what life was for me. Yes, all you've read about is true. Serial killers do start killing small animals during childhood. In Aaron's case, he started with my cat. Many killers seem to be shy, a little off, maybe even the class clown sometimes. Aaron? He was a bully. Period. Life was hell for all of us. And maybe, well, I'm not a saint. So, yes, maybe I did have something to do with all of that. Darkness growing inside Aaron. But I refuse to take all the blame. I didn't make him do anything. I have the right to defend myself. Sadly, I didn't defend myself too much. Not from him, not from anyone. I tried, I just failed. I got into fights, and instead of kicking ass, I got my ass handed to me. Again and again. Rinse and repeat. In high school, at the community college I volunteered at for a semester, at my minimum wage first job, at my minimum wage second, third, fourth job, with my first unfaithful boyfriend, a guy who was 15 years older than me, with my second drunk boyfriend and my third violent boyfriend and my fourth unemployed boyfriend, and it could have been worse. I see that now. At least I had a roof over my head and food and a blanket to cover my body during the winter, since I never had a place with heating. I was in a downward spiral. Funny, I wasn't really in a high place when I begun my life, and I managed to go down anyway. I was having a rougher time than usual. For the last couple months, things had just been one long beating. I just couldn't catch a break. My utilities were turned off since I couldn't pay them, and I couldn't pay them because I had been robbed, and I was robbed because my ex broke into my house and stole every valuable thing he could find, and he was my ex because I dumped him once I found out he was married. I asked for help. Some friends said they would just give me money and I could repay them whenever I was able to do so. They never gave me the money. I got depressed, I guess. I made one mistake too many at my job, and I was fired for it. So I went back to my apartment to sit in the dark, alone. No TV to make some noise in the background, no internet to distract myself, nothing but my own thoughts. I tried to focus my mind on a few happy memories. I didn't have many of those. All other things fell upon me as a cascade of agony. I couldn't stop those memories. I had tried in the past but never managed to do it. That night, I didn't even try. I just let the sadness take over. In the end, I was left alone with one single question. Do things ever change? I had an answer for myself. No. I took all the pills I had. It took me a while, but I gathered the courage to swallow them. 10, maybe 15. 3 glasses full of water. A minute to realize, reaffirm that that was what I wanted. 6 seconds to lay in my bed, and 1 more to close my eyes and depart without a goodbye. Then I felt cold. Too cold for the season. I tried to reach for my blanket, but I couldn't find it. And I didn't care either. I just wanted to sleep, and sleep I did. A second or a lifetime later, I opened my eyes after hearing someone saying my name, and I wasn't in my room on my bed in the dark anymore. It was a chamber of sorts. And then I just knew it. I died, and I was in hell. I died, and I was in hell. In hell because I committed a mortal sin. I took my own life. Well, it seems it wasn't mine after all, to take or otherwise. I woke up to the afterlife in a chamber, a small space, dark and cold. I was on an altar. The door in front of me was opened. A bright red light was shining, close, outside somewhere. Why isn't this one strapped? Someone asked. We don't know if she's staying, someone else answered. Do not close her door. Let her take a peek, just in case they, up there, pull it off. Trembling, but accepting what was happening, I left the altar as I used to leave my bed in the mornings. Working up the courage to walk to the door took me a year. Crossing the threshold took me another. Outside, there was a vault. Inside the vault, countless doors that led, I guess, to countless chambers with countless souls trapped inside. The place was massive. There was a red light above, miles away, and a hole directly below it. I ran towards the hole, the only thing that I could reach that wasn't a door that led to who knows what. I stared into the abyss. It didn't stare back, but maybe it talked. I heard a voice. It was calling my name. One interesting thing about the afterlife, you have absolute clarity about your own emotions, at least when you're alone. I wanted to end it. I wanted to die again, even when I knew that dying again wouldn't be enough. So I jumped into the abyss, into the nothingness, hoping, wishing to become nothing again, to return to the state of things before birth, to end consciousness once and for all. I was a fool, yeah. Have you ever had a dream where you fell from a high place? What am I even asking? Of course you did. You're human, most likely. And even if you're not, well, jumping into the abyss felt like that, but without awakening. Free falling for what may have been a lifetime or more, with time to reflect on my time on Earth. Funny, I kept all my memories and I was forced to focus on the ugly ones. Granted, I didn't have many memories of other types, but there were a few I could have thought of. The time I completed a hike alone at a national park. That time I thought I was in a healthy, normal relationship. I had all my bills paid and my job wasn't too stressful. Or that time I misread the numbers on the screen and thought I won the lottery, and for 5 seconds I was indeed happy. For once. But no. As I fell, I couldn't think of anything that wasn't as dark as the void around me. I screamed at the top of my lungs for hours, days, weeks. Eventually, I think, I just got used to the falling, and I got used to the fear. A minute later, I touched the floor. It hurt. The pain was bigger than anything I've ever felt. Bigger than that time my brother broke my leg with that damn hammer. I laid still, feeling everything inside me break. My organs may well have exploded from the impact. I had several open wounds on my skin, and all of them bled black blood, if it was even blood. I crawled in the darkness towards a small point of light, bright white light, nothing like the dying red sun the chamber was lit by. It took me mere seconds to travel the 1,000 miles or more that separated me from that point. It was another hole in what felt like a wall, and in I went, cutting my skin along the jagged rocks that surrounded me. I emerged from the other side in a valley among mountains during the day. There was a trail. I managed to get up and walk downwards towards a lake. I could hear birds in the trees close. They sang a song about me. They sang about my loneliness and my pain. And they reminded me of what I already knew. It was my fault. I deserved it. And more, there were people there. I could hear their footsteps, erratic, lost, damned as I was. I wanted to say something. I wanted to call for them. I wanted them to not feel alone, and I wanted to take some modicum of comfort from the presence of others. But I didn't. They knew I was there. Once I reached the lake, I cut my hands together and took some water. I drank, and my throat burned, as it burned every other time I tried to eat or drink something. And I ate and drank many times, since I soon learned not doing it was even worse. It was water, not any other liquid. There were fish swimming in the lake. There was nothing wrong with the liquid. The problem was, well, me. I retreated into some bushes and tried to sleep, and I did. Soon, I learned where mankind's nightmares come from. I slept and dreamed, knowing that I was dreaming, knowing that everything would be dangerous. That's the tranquilizing thing about hell. Everything hurts. There are no surprises from that point of view. What I didn't expect was what would happen later. As I laid on the grass, exhausted and trying to get away from the pain of the afterlife, the pains of my previous life came back to haunt me again. The memories of everything I had endured chased me in a maze made of sorrows and grief, immaterial, but as limiting as the walls of a prison should be. Those incidents from days long past were happening again right before my eyes. The spirits of the damned witnessed as the demons wore familiar faces and reenacted it all over again. Every word, every slap, every dirty word and every eye roll, once and again, with new fictional details each time for so many times that I forgot what happened and what didn't. The shadows of those demons crawled from hell's sky where my suffering was being projected, descending into the poisonous air until they reached the ground. I thought they came for me, but they ignored me, as if I wasn't even there. And no, it wasn't a relief, not really. I saw the shadows of my suffering gather and, through a combined effort, tear some kind of barrier between dimensions, from the pit of darkness to the realm of dreams. They fled. They fled and went on to torment the living, to feed the atavistic fears with my own personal fears, to create new traumas so their masters could delight in watching, always watching. Because when you think you hear your name when you're alone, when you think you see something moving in the far sides of your perception, when you feel the hair on your neck stand up, that's because they're watching. Voyeurs from hell. A never-ending movie with you as the protagonist, or with you as an extra, depending on how you're feeling. Sadists. All of them. As I lay there in my conscious sleep, I saw the sky. Many other scenes were playing, a pain of thousands of others, forced into existence in the form of moving shadows. Some things didn't seem scary to me. Some of them were even kind of nice. And I wondered if the powers that rule hell let me, us, see that because they didn't care, or for some other reason, such as a reminder that existence includes more than pain. I can't remember exactly what woke me up. It wasn't a sound. There was no thunder, no explosion, no alarms, no bells, no hand pushing me, no yelling. Just the feeling of opening my eyes, thinking that I just had a dream within a dream, and realizing that indeed it wasn't like that. It was just a dream, and I was still in hell, which hurt again. I remember I cried more, for hours or days or weeks or months, and at some point I asked myself out loud, is there anything left besides tears? There was, just not for me. From that moment on, I decided to never sleep again. Funny, in the afterlife as in life, you feel the weight of time. You get tired. You need to rest, even when there's no such thing as peace. So I had to go back on that decision once the pain in my body, the burning in my eyes, the noise in my ears was too much to bear. And yet again, the same old nightmares came, everything again, with just one difference. There were no shadows escaping into the world of the living, using dreams to spread my own misery. There was no purpose, I guess, as all those other creatures were already there, free to push you, all of you, while you can't defend yourselves. Because, yes, there are ways to fight back against hell, if you're alive. I walked away from my nightmares there in hell, where escaping has no meaning and walking is just another way to bring on the pain to our feet. I traveled that continent, larger than what I imagined Pangea could have been, surrounded by the nothing your hopes and dreams become once you realize, as slowly as humanly possible, that no, you're not going to be a rock star. the president, a CEO, a genius, not even happy. You'll be trapped from 9 to 5. You'll go back to a cold place you'll call home. You'll feel like screaming most of the time. You'll hate mostly everyone. You'll be haunted by the memories of your failures. You'll love few and be loved by even fewer. And you'll lose them too soon and miss them for too long. You'll make them sandwiches, damn it. In the afterlife, I learned there are two kinds of people. Those who can help others and those who will only hurt others. If you're the former, you'll make sandwiches. Simple as that. But that's not the point. I walked, as I said, 10,000 miles. I roamed the deserts of hell, witnessing the sands melting under the bright black sun that pours dark light over the not-so-endless forgotten lands. Sterile. Everything is sterile under the influence of the close star. And with my feet covered in the melting sand, I walked another 1,000 miles until I reached the white woods, where it is always snowing, away from the black sun, and the land where everything is white and gray and evil inside and out, where the worms move between the frozen leaves, crawling next to the lost souls that wander into their domain. They should be the only inhabitants of those woods, and they know it, to slowly devour the damned who turned into trees, forever still, but conscious and feeling their legs moving inside their skin, feeling the worms nibble on their bodies with their sharp fangs of steel. There was something else, but you don't want to know about that. No, for real, you don't want to know. And I traveled 1,000 miles more into the seas of regret, where your liquid emotions, all the memories of everything you could have done but didn't, feed the waters where the ghosts of those creatures are the darkest storytellers. If a human soul gets close enough to see their own reflection, they won't. They look into the future that never existed, the one they never forged. All those regrets have answers, and it hurts. It hurts so much. I walked more. I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. The things I saw were burned into my brain. Some days I just close my eyes and can see everything all over again. I can hear everything I heard. But all those landscapes, all those events that happened, they were not the worst part. The worst was at a lonely crossroad, when I thought I could have some relief from the horrors of the afterlife. There was someone walking towards me, a shadow. I didn't care much at first. I saw too many of those. Maybe people like me, lost, but it wasn't a lost soul. It was someone seeking me. And I only realized it once it was too late, once he was too close, once I saw his face, once I could not run. Oh, that smile, that sour smile. "Welcome, sister," he said. "They let me out for a minute or two to greet you. We're going to have so much fun." He walked to me and stopped just an inch short of my face. He caressed my left cheek with his hand, just like when we were kids. The only thing you want less than to be trapped in a closed room with a serial killer is to be trapped in hell with a serial killer. I died. I killed myself. I committed a mortal sin. And so I was condemned to hell. And in hell, I was lost, alone, scared, confused, in perpetual suffering. There was no escape for me. And somehow, I knew that I wasn't even enduring everything the afterlife had to offer. The millions of others here, had it worse, way worse. I don't know if there's such a crime horrible enough to justify spending an eternity down here. Probably not. And so, at the crossroads, when I thought things couldn't be worse, I met him. So many years. Of course he was there. Where else could Aaron Couplard be? As I walked towards him and he walked towards me, I remembered that day. The peace, the quiet realization, it was true. He was gone. The nightmare was over. I was truly, finally free from the monster. Aaron Couplard, notorious serial killer, was gunned down by a police officer as he tried to break into a house, presumably to torture, rape, and kill someone. But the cops saw him, tried to stop him, and finally shot him. I thought... And then I met him again. His face. He had a hole in his cheek where the first bullet entered his body, according to what I read in the news. Really, I just wanted to run in the opposite direction, but I couldn't. My feet just didn't give a fuck about what I wanted. My will, my agency, it was not gone, but disfigured somehow. Maybe we were just spiritual magnets, seeking, attracting each other. The blood calls for the blood, as it is written in who knows where. Or maybe he just found another way to make me miserable, as he always did when we were both alive. I only stopped. I could only stop once we were 2 feet apart. I saw he had some clothes on, rags, but I did recognize them. That shirt, he had it when he was 14, and the pants, I remember he brought it when he was 20 or so. And the shoes, he used to wear them when we were little. There were holes on the clothes, on his skin, inside him, little holes spread all over. Small worms crawled fast on him. They got out by one hole, traveled on him, covering most of his body, and entered another orifice. They were eating his flesh from the inside. His eyes were dead, as dead as they were when he was alive, but there was a glimmer there. Another dark light, the enlightenment, the knowledge of true evil, something well beyond human capability. He stared at me. He moved his jaw, his lips, his tongue. I thought I could get away with it, he said. And I wanted to hug him, and I hated myself for it. And then I thought, I deserve this. In the end, we all deserve it. This is just rightful punishment, not vengeance, not justice, punishment for being what we are. It hurts, he said. It hurts so much, all the time. Please, help me. Please. He said, please. He never did that. Can hell break us like that? Can it change us? I was in there, and I can't answer that. I just don't know. But what I do know is what happened after that. I closed my eyes, stared at the floor, and walked. For some reason, I could move my own feet according to my own will again, and my will was to get away from him. It was my instinct all of my life, and it seems even after that. He kept talking. I could hear his voice, begging, sometimes demanding, ordering, asking. I ignored him, and as I walked away, I realized that wasn't my punishment, but his. And for the first and last time, I smiled. It is painfully obvious that not even in hell everything can be about you or about your pain as it is in life. That is probably my only real lesson from that ordeal. I heard him for hours or maybe days as I made my way towards the unknown. I only stopped walking once I couldn't hear him anymore. At that point, I was at the entrance of a gated city, something bigger than New York, Chicago, and San Francisco put together. It was pandemonium, the capital city of hell. The walls that surrounded the buildings were at least a mile tall. They were made of something I'd never seen before. Pieces of metal, shiny, clean metal, with cement and rocks in certain places, growing like tumors, held together with barbed wire. Every couple of miles, there were massive columns of thorns to warn people away. From a distance, I thought I saw many gates from which to enter the city. I just walked for a year until I reached the closest one. The entrance was guarded by two giants, each at least 12 feet tall, each armored with what looked like black chainmail, covering their full bodies. Each had a spear in the right hand and a shield in the left. Both looked at me. I don't know what their faces could have looked like under those spiked helmets, fortunately. "Enter," said one of them. "The boss is waiting for you." And so I entered. I crossed a bridge. Below, dark waters where bodies rotted, floated slowly. I could hear them mumble, trying to say something, as the worms and flies ate at them, one little chunk at a time. Above, birds without feathers, with muscle and bones exposed, flew in flocks, stalking their prey. Maybe me, maybe everyone else. As I made it to the streets, I saw the shades of former people, what was left of them after they got their sentences. As I later learned, it wasn't about time. More or less time in hell, in your prison, doesn't really make a difference. You suffer the same the first second that you would after 800 years. All the pain possible. I walked among them as they made their way to the buildings. You could see the Corcovado Hill, and on top of it, a statue of a skeleton holding something. At the foot of the hill, a favela. Only the spirits of dead children were there, abandoned forever. Can children be evil? Maybe not, but they can take their own lives. In the skyline, I recognized things I saw only on the internet. The Eiffel Tower, the Tower of Pisa, the Kremlin, Hagia Sophia, but they were different. The metal rusted, the paint gone, the glass broken, abandoned. No matter what they stood for, the symbols of human ingenuity, ambition, and will, just decayed, abandoned, forever in hell. Is this us? Is this how much we matter in the big scheme of things? Will we just be ignored? I don't know what purpose most of the buildings served, and I didn't really care. Couldn't be more than the same. More torture, more pain, more people who had lost everything that mattered and replaced with darkness and fear. I believe humans have one superpower: the skill to adapt to everything and eventually get bored of everything. So the attitude I was developing in hell may have been a symptom of our species, but it doesn't matter anyway. I knew where I had to go, to a palace in the center of the city. Maybe the knowledge was imprinted on me when I died, but I just knew many things I wasn't supposed to. For example, I knew the whole city grew in a matter of days around the palace, and I knew who was there, waiting for me. And I knew his most trusted lieutenants were there, around, and I knew he would reward them with valuable souls for the eternity of good service they were giving him. Because he thought he was going to win in the end. And who wouldn't? With every step I took towards the palace, it was more and more obvious that the city itself was alive. I could almost feel the flesh under the street's asphalt, the muscles in need of food. At some point I did realize that we, the damned, were its food. Our emotions, our regret, our pain, our anger, that was feeding it, making it possible to stay alive in a never-ending cycle of torment. I remember I did think about where Che Guevara would be, and I wondered what he may have tried to do about it. And then I gave myself the answer. Che Guevara is probably stuck somewhere alone, where there are no causes to take up, where there is no excuse to fight, where nobody needs him. Our cells are tailored to us, after all. I entered the palace. There was nobody there to greet me, but there were others around. Outside, lost souls. Inside, demons. In the shadows, watching. Somewhere up in the ceiling, waiting. In the middle of the first room, there was a hole. Jump, someone said. He is waiting for you inside. I looked down. Another hole. I jumped. I went down. Remember that dream about falling? It was like that, but longer. So damn long. I fell into a library. There were thousands of books, a desk, a hearth with a fire burning, and a man smiling at me. He pointed to a chair in front of him, inviting me to take a seat, which I did. Finally, it was my time to meet the devil. In front of me, smiling gently, like a salesman preparing the first words of his script, the devil looked just like an average dude. Slim, kind of nerdy, balding. He sported a pair of glasses that for some reason I found funny. "So, you are finally here," he said. And his voice didn't match his face. I remember I thought that was rather odd. "I am," was the only thing I could mutter. You're in an interesting place." He moved his arm and pointed at the darkness above, and I knew he wasn't talking about a hypothetical ceiling. Not dead, not alive, just in there. The human body, such an amazing machine, can withstand almost anything, can recover from just about anything. You can take parts away and it will still work, mostly. But it is at the same time so fragile. And you, mankind, are so good at figuring out ways to exploit such fragility. A good chunk of your industries revolve around killing. I have to admit, I admire your ingenuity. Only he could do it too. The devil nodded several times, agreeing with himself, and then he put his hands on the sides of his face. "Don't just sit in silence," he said. "I have this tendency to never stop talking. So, you've been exploring my domain. Do you like my house?" "No," I said. He laughed. "Me neither. The old man forced me into this place. I never wanted it. Why would I want this? It is so boring, so bleak, so cruel. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just trying to understand. You were saying?" I wasn't. The smile on the devil's face disappeared as my hopes of ever feeling anything positive had disappeared in my long but short stay in hell. "I've been informed that you didn't stay in the area you were supposed to," he said. "Generally, you shouldn't be allowed into any other regions. This is a little more than bureaucracy. You see, everything has a purpose here, and all things have the same purpose, to satisfy heaven's sadism. It's not for us. For real, nothing here is really for us. It is all about him. All. As always, fucking center of the universe. I swear, girl, he created the universe just so he could sit at the fucking middle of it. Old asshole. Anyway, you were telling me, you got lost or something?" "I didn't," was the only thing I could say. Yeah, you never speak a lot. Anyway, I was saying, you are allowed to leave your designated space against the rules, but fuck them. I'm the original rebel. I could ignore them, once in a while at least. I gave the order, you know? I gave the order to let you leave and wander my prison. I wanted you to see what it was like, but I'm afraid we don't have much more time." "Why?" I asked. "Why did you want me to see all of this? All of this pain, all of this misery, all of these things that, distance aside, seemed like just a darker reflection of human will to produce pain and misery." I wanted to say all of that, but I couldn't. His presence wasn't stopping me. It was the simple fact that I was just too damn exhausted to even try to communicate. "Why? Because you need to understand why this place even exists. The jerk on his throne, he doesn't care about whether or what he says is right or wrong, because for him there is only one right thing, to do as he says. He's like a mad toddler, raging because nobody does what he wants, even when what he wants contradicts another thing he wants. Consequences of having all the power in the world, I guess? Morality? What kind of morality is this? When he says do not hurt others, but can and will force others to hurt you for all of eternity. And us, torturers, are being hurt too. After a couple of hundreds of years, this gets boring. Oh, so fucking boring. This is just a play, and we're all characters. That's why he created us, just a mediocre writer entertaining himself at our expenses. The devil smacked the desk with his hand. Oh, it's okay. Don't mind me, girl. Don't mind me. Anyway, I wanted to speak with you about this and another 1,000 topics before it was too late. I have a message, but alas, it is already too late. Just remember what you saw here and speak about it. With some luck, you'll manage to avoid coming back here. Coming back? I said. To this library? To hell, he said. And so I stopped hearing his voice in front of me, and suddenly I heard it 1,000 miles away as everything around me turned to black. Then everything was a void, pitch black, soundless. I felt like floating, and then not even that. I felt nothing at all. But it only lasted for a second or two. Then I felt pain again, but I burned hotter than anything I had ever felt before. My throat, my lungs, my skin, everything felt like fire. I opened my eyes. I saw a bright light in front of me. I heard a voice. Vital stable. We got her back. And so I realized I was alive. And so I woke up. Well, I didn't wake up. I wasn't asleep. I was dead, clinically dead, for 8 minutes. I was a corpse. A lot of time, I know, but far less than eternity anyway. Yes, I know everything that's measurable is less than eternal. I know. My landlord found me. What was he doing in my house? I don't know. I asked several times, and several times she gave me contradictory answers. I don't care. I'm not living there anymore, so I just don't care. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to analyze anything. I'm just glad she was there. I'm glad she called 911. I'm glad the ambulance made it in time. I'm glad they rushed me to the hospital. I'm glad they managed to take care of me. I'm glad they didn't surrender as soon as my heart stopped working. I'm glad they tried to revive me for those 8 minutes. And I'm glad they made it. I'm glad I made it. I've explained what I saw with every little detail over and over again to the nurses, to a few relatives, to my so-called friends. The doctors told me that it's not rare to have hallucinations during near-death experiences. One of them congratulated me on my massive imagination. Yeah, sure, it was imagination, nothing else. Be sure, my experience proves nothing. All that pain, all that suffering was for nothing. Even since I was discharged from the hospital, I've lived my life more or less the same way I did before. There was no epiphany, no turn of events, no lesson to be learned. I didn't change. The world around me didn't change. The experience called life was and is the same. Hell? I didn't see anything that was beyond human imagination. God and the devil are really simple men, or, A couple of weeks after all of this, after all the attention and the love, false or otherwise, faded away, I went to church. I spoke with a priest. He listened patiently to everything I had to say, my story, yes, but also my ruminations on all of this. After I was done, he gave me a speech about mankind, about good and evil, about sin and virtue, about charity, faith, and hope, about the powers that exist below and our shields to protect us, about how to reach heaven, about lies and liars and the need to expose the truth. He spoke about the church and its resources, about the possibility of writing a book, about how much could be done with my story. I believe my last name is infamous enough to get a deal. I nodded to everything he said and then left the church. I've thought about it for some time. That's why I'm telling this story here, on the internet, away from book deals and other money makers, where no editor will come to rate my words for another buck. What I said, it was what I saw, heard, and felt. You can say I'm lying. You can explain it with 1,000 scientific theories. I don't care. I just want you to know what is down there. I want you to know that God sent me there for being weak. Weak enough that my miserable life was too much to bear. So, I guess I wouldn't contaminate the pure, strong, masochistic souls of those who can endure it all. You know who else condemned the weak so the supposedly strong could thrive? Then you know why I will kill myself again once I finish writing this. Eternal damnation, yes, and never kneeling before them. As I know now, others have done in the past. Maybe you should call us the resistance.
For another story, tune in next Tuesday. Meanwhile, watch another video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check the description for our social media. And sleep well.
If you can.